In this lesson, we're going to go over interactivity and I'll create a trigger volume and have our animation relate to it and actually be activated as soon as we walk over a trigger. So let's get started. All right, so over here we have our scene in place. We have our ice set up. We don't have a trigger just yet. We're going to go and build one. So let's go and grab a trigger here, trigger volume. And again, we can just scroll down a little bit. You'll see volumes, and you'll see volumes at the very bottom for trigger volume. Let's go and drag him into place here. And let's position him here so he makes a little bit more sense. So let's go and move him up a little bit here. And I'm going to squish him a little bit, as well as make it so he's not so buried in our terrain. A little bit higher. There we go. And let me look at it in comparison to where we're at. Sweet. So the player's going to walk up and is going to cause this guy to be animated, but not just yet. There's a few things we still need to do. One thing we're going to do is go into our level blueprint. Now, right there, there's several different types of blueprints, but we're mainly going to be working with our level blueprint on this guy. For obvious reasons, that's probably not going to translate to other things. But again, we'll just work mainly with the level. All right, so number one, what we want to do is on our trigger overlap, or when we walk on this trigger, we want this guy to come up. Now, if you wanted to, you can actually open up the library and search for things. There's also a search area here for any kind of trigger or anything else that you've built, but you can also have it by default show up on the right here. But what I like to do is just right-click, and I'm going to right-click with trigger selected. You want to make sure that guy's selected. There he is. And when you do that, when you have certain items selected, Unreal is going to recognize that certain nodes work with that particular object. So just be careful. If you get frustrated, you're like, I swear, plays in here somewhere, it doesn't show up, just make sure you grab an animation. If there's something for trigger that you want, make sure you have trigger selected. Very important to keep those things in mind. So we're going to go in here and go to Add Event Trigger Volume, go to Collision, and we're going to add on Actor Begin Overlap. Now, we're going to zoom into the one-to-one. Unreal is really great for handling our zoom, so you don't go too far in. And with this guy selected, we're also going to create a do once, because we only want that top animation to play once, and then we're going to have the bottom animation follow suit. So we're going to go do once. Go back, I put N on accident. Do once multiply input, put it in. We really could just use one, but I'll just leave the multiply input. There's two different kinds here in this particular case and what we need. And let me see here. We can also even add some more to it if you wanted. So next what we're going to do is we're going to create a play animation. So let's go and select one of our animations. We'll do the top one for now. And with it selected, and so that blueprint doesn't get confused, we're going to go and select our animation. In this case, it's going to be Ice Top 3. And you'll see that in the files and the stuff that I've given you. And we're going to go to play. And Blueprint really tries to help you out. So when I clicked on that, it actually already made our connection for our animation, which is super convenient. We're going to move him back a little bit. Then we're going to grab the bottom animation, which is number 2, which you should see also in the files that I gave you. With number 2, Ice Bottom number 2 selected, I'm going to right-click and also do play again. So I'm just going to have it connect ahead of time for me, play animation. And Unreal knows that there's a skeleton animation connected to it, so we're going to keep this guy down here. Now, you want to keep these two guys your primary. A lot of times when you make these other nodes with this animation selected, these guys are going to come up. There's going to be a little default one showing up. The problem with that is you want to keep things nice and trim and flow really nicely. If you bring in other animation nodes, that's like even duplicating this guy, and you don't have them going through the same hierarchy, you can actually confuse Blueprint. And some of your stuff may not work, and you're like, why isn't it working? It's because you need to actually keep just one, because you can plug these in multiple times in different things. It's actually pretty nice to be able to do that. Okay, so now what we need to do is create a stop animation. So I'm going to go ahead and make a stop animation. And he's going to be free of any influence here. He's not going to be connected to anything in particular. Create stop, and we're going to delete this node. This is what I meant by it showing up with other nodes. And we're going to connect both of these guys connected to it. Oh, let me make sure I grab this. There we go. Sometimes the little string doesn't show up from the top, I notice. It's really weird. And then we're going to do an event. We want an event begin play. So we want the whole thing to start but we don't want the animation to go through. So what's going to happen is when it comes to animation using Blueprint, now we're not using our blending of animation, we're keeping this pretty light on this system here, is you want to be able to have an event play, and it's going to mainly influence our top animation, and we're going to use this guy to stop that first initial animation. Even though I'm bringing this in, I'm just emphasizing this, and you'll see me do this a couple times in here to make sure that Unreal knows exactly what I want. So let's do event, begin play. There we go. And this guy, we're going to pipe him right into here. So we want that to stop. Now these animation nodes, even though we have the target loaded, I like to work like this because I think it works a little bit better. We're going to load the animation to emphasize what we want. So we have bottom animation 2. So this guy is, let's see what we got here. This is the top one. So let's go and select our top animation in our content browser. And this is Ice Top Animation. And I'm going to click on this little arrow here to load it. And then we're going to go to the bottom one. He's at the top here. There we go. And we're going to load him into our bottom animation, which is in our target. There we go. So we're making sure that Unreal knows what we're doing. Now we just want the top animation to play once. So we're going to have it do once so it doesn't keep going. But believe it or not, having this do once is also going to help our other animation because we're going to create a branch conditional right here. So let's go and create that branch conditional. There we go. Put them right here. And I'm going to grab this other play animation and move them back here so things are just a little bit easier to look at. We don't have to bend our stuff so much. So I'm going to move this in here to this branch. And if true, if the animation on this guy, which is only going to play once, is true, and it's going to look at the once as well as the play animation, it's going to look at the whole thing here, then it's only going to play this guy once also. So if true, we're going to punch him in right there. So far, so good. Now, we also want him to stop. So if false, we don't want him to play. So I'm going to create another stop. Pull him in. I'm going to remove this guy because we don't need that. We're going to punch it in from this guy so it flows a little bit better. We're not going to make a new node for it. So false, we put right here. And then we're going to grab bottom ice here, and we're going to get him in there. Let's have me zoom out a little bit here so it makes it easier to plug in. So we'll grab this guy and punch him right in as a target. Pretty smooth. So we got our play animation, and it's only going to play if this guy's working. And you can ignore the error here. What happened is we made some other nodes, and as the Blueprint tries to figure out what's going on, it gets confused. So don't let that freak you out in any way. So what we'll do here now is we're going to create one more on actor. And what that is, we're going to emphasize that this doesn't play unless the trigger is also active. Now we may not need it, but I like to create it anyway. So I'm going to grab him. I'm going to do Control-C, Control-V. I'm going to push him over here. And then we're going to pipe him right in here to the top on this guy. So we're just emphasizing, even though logically with our branch, it should not play. I'm going to still emphasize the fact that I don't want this to play unless the player runs over the trigger volume. All right, so we're going to recompile. You see that error go away that was on the do once. He gets confused when this guy comes in, and he does get confused sometimes when another one of these nodes come in. All right, so let's go and move this down, and we're going to play. Let me go forward a little bit, and we'll go forward, hit the trigger, and voila, we have animation. Sliding down the sword of justice. Pretty cool. And as I zoom out, you'll see that it doesn't pop back into place. The animation doesn't get stuck. Everything's nice and smooth. It understands the conditionals. And this is great for level design, especially if you want certain events to happen not until the player walks into a particular area. That's about it with this one. In the next video, we're going to talk about advanced materials and some of the cool stuff that we can do. You're looking at some of the nodes that are available.